Great pleasure, man. First we get the Prime Minister to start today.
Mr. Speaker, we believe social welfare comprises of state activities which promote social good in general. That means building hospitals, building infrastructure, building roads, and these are policies taken by the government which applies to people in the general sense, to all levels of people, ladies and gentlemen. And what are national lotteries? We believe national lotteries are a process through which people gamble for their luck in order to have monetary benefits, and we believe this is simply nothing but business and the arc and desire for money, ladies and gentlemen. If you look carefully at the concept of social welfare, it is promoting selflessness, it is promoting societal good. But we believe when you talk about national lotteries, it's nothing but gambling, it's nothing but selfishness, someone's inherent desire to maximize self-utility. We believe, ladies and gentlemen, it's principally wrong to mix these two concepts, and the burden of this government today is to prove to you that why. We believe on a moral level, on an economic level, and on a social level, these two concepts and these two principles are inherently not similar, and we believe therefore it's wrong to mix one with the other, ladies and gentlemen. And that is why we feel that governments should not use the money collected from national lotteries in order to promote social welfare, because it's wrong to do so on any grounds, ladies and gentlemen. Why do we feel so, ladies and gentlemen? Because we need to understand social good comes from taxes of citizens, because citizens pay taxes and it is considered to be a form of responsibility, a form of social obligation that any individual must adhere to if that individual is to exist in society, ladies and gentlemen. Whereas national lotteries are nothing but a transaction of tickets for money, whereby people who are actually hitting the jackpot gets a lot of monetary benefits, ladies and gentlemen. And we believe there is a difference between social obligation, which citizens by paying taxes actually adhere to. And therefore we believe, ladies and gentlemen, the context of this debate are Scandinavian countries which are generally social welfare maximizing states, ladies and gentlemen, where citizens have to pay 40 to 60% of their taxes in the 40 or 60% of their income in the form of taxes, ladies and gentlemen. And therefore we believe that in those countries, the governments particularly should not use money collected from national lotteries to actually fund the social welfare projects, ladies and gentlemen. Why do we believe so? Firstly, moral perspectives. We need to be ethical. We need to come to this value judgment that on first level, we need to understand that what is the incentive of these people who are doing lotteries. We believe when you consider the incentive, we see there is a clear difference in the principle through which they are actually committing or buying a ticket, ladies and gentlemen. These people who are buying tickets are not willing to promote social welfare, because if you consider the concept of social welfare, these people have already fulfilled their obligation because they have paid taxes, and anyone pay taxes. Therefore we believe, ladies and gentlemen, if you even go deeper, you need to understand that the primary incentive of buying a ticket is not to make someone better off, it's to make his or herself better off. We believe, ladies and gentlemen,
on that point,
that when this is, yes.
Do you not believe that the fundamental objective behind taxes itself, despite what you might pretend about social obligation, is that the government promises something in return? It is in fact an indirect form of self-interest that makes people pay taxes, not some sense of social obligation.
You need to understand, even if people pay taxes, the benefits applies to a general level. If you buy tickets, the benefits apply only to certain minorities who win those lottery tickets, ladies and gentlemen. And therefore we believe that the government cannot make someone better off at the expense of making someone worse off, and that's my second argument. But before that, why morally we believe it's wrong? Because we think, ladies and gentlemen, there is a clear lack in the level of incentive which anyone reflects while they buy a ticket, ladies and gentlemen. And therefore we believe it's not fair for the government to use the money because the intent of that fund collected was primarily not to promote anyone's good, ladies and gentlemen. It was to maximize self-interest. Therefore, we believe there's a clear distinction between maximizing self-interest and maximizing someone else's interest, ladies and gentlemen. And therefore, we believe it's not correct, ladies and gentlemen. And moreover, what is social welfare? These are public good. We believe that when government collects money from any citizen, we believe that money has two forms. One is ethical money, which comes from taxes because it is coherent to the purpose, and the other is not actually coherent, because then what the government money, the fund which the government gets, is primarily not meant for achieving the purpose the government is trying to fulfill, ladies and gentlemen. Because people who gamble wants their own benefit, not someone else's benefit. And we believe the government has no right, the government has no justification to use this money, ladies and gentlemen, even on an indirect premise for other people, ladies and gentlemen. Thirdly, what we say is that the opportunity cost of this policy is very great. How, ladies and gentlemen? Because we say that you need to understand that only a few people out of a national range, because everyone in the nation or most of the people, a huge number of people participate in buying tickets, but only a few of these individuals actually end up winning anything, ladies and gentlemen. And therefore we believe this amount of funds, this kind of funds comes at the expense of a huge amount of people losing money. We believe, ladies and gentlemen, families are broken because people who gamble in excess ends up in broken families. We believe these people are not making informed choices at any level, ladies and gentlemen. And therefore we believe the consequence in the money which they actually get is not fair at any level, ladies and gentlemen. 6 minutes. Next, ladies and gentlemen, we say whether the government requires this money. We believe people are already paying their taxes. They're already fulfilling their social responsibilities. Because in this country, the tax level is very high. And we say these people do not need this money on the very first. The government doesn't need the money in the very first place. But on the second level, we say, ladies and gentlemen, if you consider government policies, this is a very unethical way of how to extract money from the citizens, how to extract money from citizens who cannot make informed choices because they are blinded by the greed of money, ladies and gentlemen. And I believe it is unfair for the government to exploit citizens on any level, exploit even the miscalculations which might arise from the citizens making biased decisions, ladies and gentlemen. Because these people are already paying taxes, because these people are already doing what they need to do, ladies and gentlemen. And even if they want to give the money to these national lotteries, the government should not do it so, because we believe this is against the principle of social equity, because then governments are treating entities unequally, ladies and gentlemen, trying to make someone better off using those money by making others worse off who lose in the national lotteries. This is principally inconsistent. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Right, I thank the speaker for his speech and invite the first speaker of opposition or the leader of opposition.
Good morning, respected Chair and fellow dedicators. This is the leader of the opposition on the motion. This House believes that it is wrong to raise money for social welfare through national lotteries. I will first be addressing some of the points made by the Prime Minister and then going on to my own constructives. Now, firstly, the Prime Minister has, I will take his last point first, based on his definition of the House of Scandinavian countries. He suggests that Scandinavian countries have a very high rate of tax payment and therefore they don't need this money. The fact, ladies and gentlemen, is that Scandinavian countries, as part of the larger world picture right now, are in severe amounts of trouble in the sense that the governments there don't have funds. You have examples of countries such as Iceland and Finland, who have, Iceland particularly, has gone into bankruptcy. It is basically a country that does not function anymore because it doesn't have any government funds. So therefore, the tax payment in these countries, the percentage of tax payment, the amount of money that the government expects from its people cannot mask the fact that the government does not have adequate amounts of money as of this point. So there is no, thank you, sir. So there is definitely a need here. The governments in these countries need the money to be able to provide social welfare to their people. Now, on the point of social welfare, we fundamentally agree with the Prime Minister with the proposition that social welfare constitutes building roads and hospitals, other public amenities. And that is exactly what we're talking about here. You see, they've said that firstly, that you can only collect money from people with an ethical intent, in the sense that people have to pay money with the intent that it is used for the public good, so that you can use that money for the public good. Now, this falls on two counts. Firstly, practically looking all around the world, especially in Scandinavian countries, there are taxes on such things as tobacco. There are taxes on such things as liquor. There are taxes on casinos. There are taxes on any number of things. The government is already profiting from these enterprises. So the moral bankruptcy of the people who are going to these establishments and paying money towards these activities does not stop the government trying to make money of it. So that's on a practical level. Secondly, the idea that it is somehow wrong to link the self-interest of a person with a larger public good, it is in fact a form of incentivization. If you link the self-interest of a particular person with a larger public good, that in fact is the base level of taxation, as opposed to the superficial justification advanced by the proposition that it is in fact based on social obligation. It is not, ladies and gentlemen. It's a social contract between the person and the state, where they say, we will pay a certain amount of our income to you, just talking about income tax, apart from the other levels of taxes, so that you provide us amenities. So the person is not thinking, when I pay income tax, I'm generating roads for other people. They're thinking, I'm generating roads and hospitals that at some point of time I might want to use. I want to use these amenities. Not that the larger public will get to use amenities that are built in part with my money. So there is this definite amount of self-interest, and this ethical moral bankruptcy that they claim is a bar to using this taxation money for the public good just does not exist. Now, they've also gone on to say that in lottery tickets, only one person benefits. Now, here we have to address the way in which a lottery works in the first place. When a corporation, for example, when a bank, conducts a lottery, what it does is it collects, say, $10 from each person. So you get 10,000 people contributing $10. So that's $100,000. But the price that they announce will be $10,000. So the one person who invested $10 but gets back $10,000 is extremely happy, because their contribution is multiplied 1,000-fold. But the total corpus of money that the bank receives from all these people is $100,000. They've made a profit of $90,000 while making one person very happy. When you're doing this at a government level, when you're saying that the government will have a national lottery by which it applies this model and collects money from the people, then that leaves $90,000 for the government to use. That is what they fundamentally fail to understand. I think that they're working on the presumption that lotteries collect money from all people and give all the money to one person. That's not the way that they work. There's a significant amount of money left over. These corporations just don't do it for goodwill. They in fact significantly generate profits. Now multiply this by a nationwide lottery. You're collecting money from pretty much every segment of the population, and the corpus of money that you're going to be left with, after is enormous. It's money that is a significant amount of money that can be used for social welfare. So there is a significant amount of money that's left behind for social welfare. Now, they've talked about the family costs, the fact that it is gambling, and families are ruined by this sort of thing. Now, here's the point, ladies and gentlemen. I'll take that.
Under the National UK Gambling Commission, the UK government only keeps 12% of the revenues, which cannot actually adhere to that much of social welfare which you portray. In general, governments keep a very small portion, never more than 20%, and we believe the social welfare and the big amount of money you're talking about is unpractical.
Well, that might be the UK government scheme. We would argue that firstly 12% is still a significant amount of money when they're collecting money from the whole population. 12% in pounds or from the whole UK population is still a significant amount of money for social welfare. And secondly, they have never at any point of time said that this must be the model imposed here. The burden on the proposition here is to prove that any model of a lottery imposed by a government, even one that keeps 10%, even one that keeps 90% for the government and 10% for the winner, will necessarily be a bad thing. And they're arguing this an ethical bankruptcy, moral bankruptcy, as well as the fact that all the money goes to one person. All the money does not go to one person. In the UK, at least 12% is kept. There is every possibility that our dire need for money in the Scandinavian countries would necessitate us keeping a larger amount of money. Nothing stops the government from doing this. They can always keep a larger amount of money. Now, the morality of lotteries themselves, the fact that they're gambling. Now, ladies and gentlemen, lotteries are not by themselves vices, in the sense that human endeavor throughout history has been an attempt to put in small investment and get large returns. The wheel, the lever. I want to push a little but get large lift. I want to put in a certain amount of investment. I want to put in a certain amount of petrol into my car and get massive amounts of mileage. It's helped in technology. That's the point of human endeavor. It's helped in economics. I want to streamline my costs so that when I put a certain amount of money, I want to earn a larger amount of profit. There is nothing wrong with wanting to put a certain amount of investment and earn a large amount of money. The ethical bankruptcy here is when it becomes an addictive activity. Now here, the point here is that the lottery is not an ethically bankrupt activity when it is conducted by the government with a certain number of tickets for each person. It is not that it's going to be a free lottery where people keep spending money on these lottery tickets. The government can in fact regulate the number of lottery tickets that each person buys. They can make sure that the databases that they have as part of the government ensure that people do not extensively spend on lotteries. In fact, they can work on a subscription system by which people get a certain number of lottery tickets per month. So you're contributing a certain amount of money, but you are still entitled to that return. So with that, we rest.
Right, thanks speaker for his speech. Invite second speaker of government team to take the floor.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, for giving me the floor. Now, as the Deputy Prime Minister, what I'm going to do in this House today is I'll be rebutting all the points which came from side opposition, and then I'll be going on to giving you my substantive, which is it demeans the concept of lending a helping hand in order to do social welfare. Now, Honourable Speaker, firstly, this debate is not about how much money the government keeps, but this debate is actually about whether the government should keep this money or take this money in the first place or not. Now, Honourable Speaker, they come up over here and they tell us that, you know what, there is a dire necessity for Scandinavian countries to carry out these lotteries. We from side government believe that there is no dire necessity of such lotteries in these Scandinavian countries. The opposition says that, you know what, Iceland requires this money because the government has gone bankrupt, Honourable Speaker. But Honourable Speaker, you have to understand this, that if this policy does not pass, then the poor in these countries will also resort to gambling, Honourable Speaker. As a result of which, the amount of money they have for themselves will actually replenish, because will actually go away, because this concept of gambling is very important in this debate today, and this lottery, buying and selling of lotteries is actually also, they have accepted this fact that it is actually very addictive in nature, and according to their policy, they're not actually taking care of the poor in these countries as well. Now they come up and say that, you know what, the government also gets money from other areas such as casinos, such as other businesses as well. Now, Honourable Speaker, we again tell you that this is not the debate over here. The debate in this House today is being about whether we should allow the selling of these national lottery tickets or not. The concept of gambling, the concept of social welfare is of paramount importance in this regard. Honourable Speaker, they also come up and say, rebutting us, that 90% of the money is actually being kept by the government. When we showed to you in a POI that in the United Kingdom, actually only 20% of that money is retained by the government. And Honourable Speaker, we believe from side government that it is actually immoral from the side of the government to do this, because you know what, you're taking
taking a lot of money from a certain individual and you're actually investing only 20% of that amount on doing societal welfare. We say from side government that it is unjustified. Say, now Honourable Speaker, what was their basic argument? They say, they come up and say, they argue that, you know what, it is okay for a person to make profit out of lottery tickets. There's nothing wrong in it, Honourable Speaker. We believe that we also from side government believe that, you know what, there's nothing wrong in making a profit out of something. However, it is actually immoral when the government goes up and takes money from you and then spends that money on something and actually benefits a minority on the expense of a majority. Because either ways, the concept of lottery, it applies that, you know what, some people, actually the majority of the people are going to lose while only a few benefit from it. We say from side government that it is unjustified. Now, Honourable Speaker, going on to my substantive, that it demeans the concept of lending a hand to social welfare. Now, Honourable Speaker, the lottery tickets affect the society on two levels. First of all, the individual level, and secondly, the futuristic level. First of all, let's deal with the individual level. Now, Honourable Speaker, people buy these tickets firstly to make profits and secondly for the thrill of gambling, as it has already been established. Now, the concept of social welfare entails people to be selfless. Social welfare should be done just for the sake of benefiting society and not for personal benefits, Honourable Speaker. One should not be expecting any return for trying to help society in general. When these people are buying these tickets to make profits, it is going against the entire concept, entire essence of social welfare. The intention of these people are not to help society in the first place. Their primary interest, as it has been cleared by our Prime Minister, is to make profit. When these people are buying these tickets for gambling, Honourable Speaker, it is again disrespecting the concept of social welfare. Going deeper into the issue, when the primary intention is to make a profit and when any individual is actually losing, there is a chance of public resentment being created in the society in general. For example, I buy a lottery ticket and I lose, but my neighbor wins and buys a Lamborghini. Now, Honourable Speaker, from an individual level, I will be pissed. And there will be two possibilities. Firstly, I will stop buying these tickets and I will also stop helping society in general because, Honourable Speaker, you know why? Because the perception I have about doing social welfare is only through buying tickets. Now, Honourable Speaker, before I move on to the next level, your point, sir.
Yeah, but if I contribute towards my taxes and I don't get returns for it, there is still a certain amount of resentment. It comes from the same self-interest. It doesn't come from a larger public good.
Honourable Speaker, you have to draw a clear distinction between giving taxes to the government and buying lottery tickets for the thrill of gambling and making a profit. There is a very big line in between the two of it, because in one case you're doing it as a responsibility towards a nation, and in the other case you're doing it to help yourself, to help your personal interest, to make a profit and to actually enjoy the thrill of gambling. Now, Honourable Speaker, answering that question, I move on to the futuristic level, which is the second level. The mindset of the people is very important to understand in this case, Honourable Speaker. Now, what is the norm of doing social welfare nowadays? It is basically buying these lottery tickets which are meant to do social welfare. This is the norm which has been created in today's world, that in order to do social welfare, you buy these lottery tickets. So, when no lottery tickets will be sold, people will not be taking an initiative to do any social welfare, Honourable Speaker. The mindset of society, this mindset of society, is actually detrimental for the entire society in general. It is because it goes on to show that the majority will only try to do social welfare just when the government tries to sell these lottery tickets. And we believe that in the future, this will be detrimental when it comes to doing social welfare in general. Now, Honourable Speaker, what have I done in this debate today? I've explained to you on two levels, which is the individual level and which is on the futuristic level, that how it demeans the concept of lending a hand to social welfare. How the true intentions of people are very important over here. I've also come up and shown to you that the opposition have actually failed to show us that, you know what, it is okay to make a profit, because they have failed to draw a clear distinction between making a profit and helping oneself in order to make a profit, and to enjoy the thrill of gambling and paying taxes as a whole. And with that, I believe that the government side takes this way too. Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Thank you all.
Right, thanks Speaker for his speech, and invite the second Speaker of Opposition, the Deputy Leader of Opposition.
A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen of this August House. The motion before us. This House believes that it is wrong to raise money for social welfare through national lotteries. Ladies and gentlemen, the burden on side proposition was to tell us that it is absolutely wrong on all levels to raise money for social welfare using national lotteries in any form whatsoever, which we as side opposition believe proposition has not discharged. Side proposition seems to be misguiding the debate towards one about the ethical aspects and morality of gambling. Ladies and gentlemen, this debate is not about that. The fundamental problem that side proposition had was that there is an ethical vacuum that is present because lotteries serve self-interest and therefore you cannot use this money for a social welfare. Ladies and gentlemen, on the contrary, by linking lotteries to social welfare, we are filling this ethical vacuum that does exist. So in turn, what we are doing is we are taking the money that would come from an activity of self-interest, which is again being propounded by side proposition, and using it for social welfare, which we believe is absolutely justified. Given as my LO has come and elaborated that we do have taxes being imposed on other activities which would technically fall within their definition of being ethically wrongs. Activities such as casinos are taxed. You do impose taxes on smoking. You do impose taxes on alcohol. So if you are imposing taxes on these things, we believe it's perfectly justified for you to use some percentage of the money that is being generated as a result of national lotteries and use it for social welfare. Now, what has side proposition come and said? They believe, first of all, that there is absolutely no need to have the money from national lotteries being used for social welfare. What are we telling you? Firstly, that there is a need. The debate, as side proposition sets it, in the Scandinavian countries or any other part of the world, we are going through some sort of an economic crisis. As my LO has come and pointed out, there are Scandinavian countries that are facing bankruptcy. So clearly there is a pressing need. On the part of the government, that the government does require some money, and every source of revenue that the government feels is justified, the government is justified in looking into that source of money, and we believe lotteries are one such source of money that the government can certainly look at. Secondly, what do they come and tell you? They come and tell you that the poor will resort to gambling and therefore this is not an acceptable way for the government to raise money. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this has been an assertion by side proposition. They haven't bothered to come and analyze this and substantiate as to how exactly the government taking money from national lotteries, gambling anyway is present in the Scandinavian countries. It's not illegal. What we're merely doing is, on the contrary, we're regulating the activity of gambling. We want to bring in a system of subscription, as my LO has come and told you. So instead of the poor spending indiscriminate amounts of money on other casinos that are present, they would be incentivized to come to our national lottery system. You're not spending too much amount of money. The odds of winning are still the same, ladies and gentlemen, and the government is using this money for social welfare, thus in turn fulfilling the need that does exist. That does exist. Secondly, they come and tell you is that yes.
See, governments go bankrupt, and this is a separate incident because of the own government's fault. So therefore, the government cannot make national people worse off by looting money from them, because lotteries are gambling where people loses money.
Ladies and gentlemen, the government is not making people worse off. Gambling as an activity is inherently present in the society today. What we are doing is we are merely capitalizing on the presence of this activity, and we are trying to gain benefit from this activity, and therefore instead of just one person benefiting from that activity, as opposed to the benefit going only to the person who would be the winner of that lottery and the substantially some other large sum of money being appropriated by the person who is running that lottery, appropriating that amount of money as profit, as my LO has already told you. We're using this money for the benefit of other people in the society. So as opposed to making people worse off, ladies and gentlemen, we are on the contrary making a larger section of the population better off in a time of financial crisis, is what we believe. Now, thirdly, they say that this is inappropriate on an individual level, because an individual does it for profit and for thrill, and social welfare is an act of selflessness. And they seem to be confusing the whole debate about taxes with that of national lotteries. Ladies and gentlemen, even when an individual pays taxes, an individual doesn't do this out of a sense of responsibility towards the government, irrespective of what side proposition would have you believe. You and I pay taxes to the government because the government wants us to pay taxes for whatever purposes that the government has outlined for the sake of those taxes. On the contrary, when I go out and indulge in gambling, when I as an individual go out and buy a lottery ticket, I am doing it because I want to do it. So there is no sir. So there is a freedom of choice that the individual exercises. The personal freedom of the individual in going and buying that lottery ticket, ladies and gentlemen. So as opposed to taxes, which are a burden that the state exerts on the individual, and we are not at any point of time saying that taxes should not be imposed by the government. We're merely saying that taxes are present, but however you do have taxes, you have problems that are associated with the taxes. The first problem that you have is that it's an inherently top-down approach, and individuals are far more likely to do an activity, are far more ready and willing to do an activity which they personally are involved in, as opposed to an activity which is imposed on them as an obligation by the state. Secondly, ladies and gentlemen, the problem with taxes is that the benefit of taxation is not always tangible. You and I pay taxes to the government, which goes into a large corpus. We have no idea what the government is doing with that money. As opposed to a scheme of a national lottery, where the government would outline that some percentage of this money would go for social welfare, and then building on that sentiment of people, which does very much exist in society, that individuals are not inherently selfish beings, do not care about other members of the society at all. If that were the case, people would not indulge in any other social welfare activity. If that were the case, you and I would not go and buy environmentally friendly products. You and I would not shop at a store where the percentage of profits goes for social welfare, as opposed to a store where the entire profit was appropriated by the management itself. So building on the sentiment of the people. Further, ladies and gentlemen, building on the psyche of the people, that benefits that are from taxation are far less tangible than the benefits that would arise from a scheme of national lottery. We believe that such a scheme would definitely work in bringing about some sort of social welfare that is the pressing need of the hour. The government is short on funds, and this is one such method for the government to eradicate this pressing need. The cost-benefit analysis will be done by the whip, and thematizing the debate, he'll show you why the debate should go to side on this issue. With that, we're proud to. Thank you.